Hello and welcome to another mental health and well-being episode. This time it's a complement to the last one I did where I talked about the penny counting tally markers. And this is sort of like taking that to the next step. And what this is, where that one is keeping a tally every time you have a negative thought. But that's all you're doing with that one, is you're just keeping a tally of how many times it happens. Now we're going to take this a little bit further and sort of keep a log of what you were doing, where you were, and what time it was. And you're just going to mark those down when you have a negative thought, either anxiety or depression or anger or any of those feelings where they just kind of change up how you handle the rest of your day. You don't have to write down what's being thought or said or done necessarily that triggers it. Just that this happened, I was doing this at the time, this is, where I was, that sort of thing. And like the last one, just keeping that without necessarily thinking ahead to why it matters is important, because it lets you just become aware of the situation. There are times you run through your life and you don't know why you feel bad, but it's happened somewhere and you don't know. It's being conscious of something that's happening unconsciously and affecting your mood and capabilities unconsciously. So, being able to just keep them, a log of where you were, what you were doing, and how you felt. And just keeping that log is useful for, and if you want to do this, I suggest stopping, do this for a day, maybe a couple days, even a whole week, and then come back and view the rest of the video and see where this goes from here. And so now the part that kind of explains why this is useful is when we talked about keeping the pennies to keep a tally, it lets you know that these are discrete events that are happening throughout your day that are triggering these feelings. There's a moment when it happens. It's not a persistent malaise hanging over you at all times. And so when you keep a log, it's sort of like for some of my digestive health issues, the doctors oftentimes recommend keeping a food diary. But in the case of this, as you go through your life and you're doing something that causes you emotional strain of some kind, either stress, anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, you get to see when you write down that if you were, in traffic at the time and you were getting frustrated, that's an indicator that one time of something happening. But as you look at patterns over time, you'll notice that there are certain things that you respond a certain way to. So when you look at these patterns that occur over more than one day or at different times when something repeats in your day, it helps you recognize that something that reoccurs throughout your life stimulates those same responses of stress and anxiety or depression and frustration, that every time it happens, you feel this way. And it helps you be more conscious of, like if you have an anxiety attack every time you encounter something on a regular basis, you then get to decide whether or not that's going to continue to be the way. You can decide whether or not you're going to minimize your encounters with those things for a little while so that you don't encounter them over and over again and keep triggering that stress. But you can also choose to actively work on those things. So you can choose to work through gradual exposure. If you have a fear of dogs or something like that, you can gradually expose yourself to harmless, mostly cute looking dogs and work your way up and gradually decondition yourself from your fear of that. But if you don't know that that is the biggest instigator of that stressed feeling you have all day long, or just that yapping noise is just frazzles you, and at the end of the day you're shrieking and angry but you don't know why, if you are able to find those instances and write down when and where it was happening and what you were doing at the time, you'll start to recognize patterns that you may have otherwise missed. And with those patterns, you can pick ones to confront and work through or work around. Part of this is also valuable in the sense that if you have a struggle that you're going through and you have other struggles, being able to minimize some while you work through others gives you more control over getting a means of dealing with those sensations, so it's not as disabling to you. Being able to say, this week I'm going to work on my anxiety about this. These other 3 anxieties I'm just going to not get as much access to this rest of the week so that I can focus on working past some of the stress of this one. And once that one's diminished sufficiently, you can pick another one and work your way through it. But being able to see the pattern to help you find things you may not realize are triggers for you helps you empower yourself to take control of those situations and work through. And so that's a really useful tool. I hope that's a valuable technique for you, and hopefully I'll see you next time for more steps and getting better and moving forward. Alright, see you next time.